The meeting ended the way many do. Polite smiles, subtle nods, and a quiet agreement that everything was fine. But nothing was fine. The project was already slipping away. Deadlines had been missed twice. One team member was quietly carrying the weight of 3 others, and another team member had begun to disengage, showing up physically but withdrawing psychologically. And the leader saw all of it. He felt all of it, but said nothing about it. Instead, he closed the meeting with a familiar line we are all used to. Let's all try to be a bit more proactive going forward. Everyone nodded, and everyone left the meeting confused. You see, this is how dysfunction survives in organizations, not through conflict, but through avoidance disguised as professionalism. Leaders often believe their greatest risk is saying the wrong thing. Meanwhile, in reality, their greatest risk is not saying what needs to be said. The psychology behind this is not incompetence, it is fear. The fear of rocking the boat, the fear of being disliked, the fear of being perceived as overly critical or harsh. Many leaders have been conditioned culturally and professionally to equate kindness with softness and clarity with aggression. So they choose what feels safe: vague feedback, softened language, and delayed conversations. But what feels safe in the moment becomes dangerous over time. Welcome. You're watching The Leadership Factory. The Leadership Factory is a space where we explore practical, research-driven insights that help leaders think clearly, lead wisely, and build healthier organizations. Today, we are diving into a powerful leadership reality many people don't talk about, and it is titled The Psychological Minefield: Why Leaders Struggle to Say What Must Be Said. Research in organizational behavior consistently shows that unclear feedback is one of the leading causes of performance stagnation and employee disengagement. A study published in the Harvard Business Review found that employees would rather receive negative feedback than no feedback at all, because ambiguity creates anxiety. The human mind fills gaps with assumptions, and those assumptions are rarely generous. This is where the second layer of the minefield emerges. Employees are not neutral recipients of feedback, they are interpreters of meaning. So, when feedback feels like an attack, it triggers shame, and shame is not a motivator, it is a shutdown mechanism. It activates defensiveness, withdrawal, and in many cases, quiet resentment. What the leader has intended as correction is received as rejection. So, leaders then retreat even further. They soften their words, they dilute their message, and unintentionally create what I call the illusion of safety. It feels peaceful, it feels respectful, but it is a false peace, one that delays the necessary tension and compounds future consequences. You are not preserving harmony, you are postponing disruption. And postponed disruption always returns louder, costlier, and harder to manage. You see, I once worked with a senior executive who prided himself on maintaining a positive team culture. His team described him as approachable, kind, and supportive. But beneath that surface was a growing frustration. Underperformance was tolerated, high performance left unseen. Mediocrity had become the standard in the organization. When we examined his leadership pattern, the issue became clear. He avoided difficult conversations because he believed they would damage his relationships. The opposite was happening. His silence was eroding trust, because trust is not built on comfort, it is built on clarity. So, what does it take to lead through this psychological minefield? It begins with a reframing. Feedback is not criticism, it is calibration. Your role as a leader is not to protect people from discomfort, it is to guide them towards growth. And growth is inherently uncomfortable. But discomfort does not have to be destructive. The difference then lies in how feedback is delivered. Clarity must be anchored in care. Feedback must be anchored in care. When people sense that your intention is development, not judgment, they are far more likely to engage rather than defend. This requires emotional discipline. It requires separating behavior from identity. It requires saying, this outcome is not where it needs to be, without implying you are not enough. That distinction is the difference between growth and withdrawal. There is also a practical discipline that many leaders overlook, and that is timing. Delayed feedback is diluted feedback. The longer you wait, the more the conversation shifts from correction to confrontation. Address issues early when they are still small enough to be managed without emotional escalation. Precision in timing reduces the psychological weight of the conversation. Then there is specificity. Vague feedback creates confusion, while specific feedback creates direction. Saying you need to improve your communication leaves the employee guessing. Rather, reframe and say it in a different way. Say it this way. In yesterday's client meeting, the lack of clarity around timelines created uncertainty. Let's work on structuring your updates more precisely. That provides a clear path forward for that employee. Clarity is not harsh, it is helpful. But perhaps the most overlooked dimension is this. Leaders must learn to sit in the discomfort they are trying to avoid. Because the discomfort you refuse to face does not disappear, it transfers. It transfers to your team, it transfers to your culture, and ultimately your result. So, here are the questions every leader must confront, honestly and without defense. What conversation have you been postponing because it feels uncomfortable? Who on your team is operating below their potential because you have not been clear with them? Where has your desire to be liked compromised responsibility to lead? And what is the hidden cost of your silence? Because there is always a cost. Sometimes it is missed performance. Sometimes it is disengagement. And sometimes it is the quiet departure of your most capable people, those who grew tired of carrying what others are not being held accountable for. The irony is this: the very conversations leaders avoid in the name of preserving relationships are often the ones that will strengthen them. People do not expect perfection from leaders. They expect honesty. And honesty, when delivered with respect and intention, does not break trust. It builds it. So here is your challenge. Before this week ends, identify one conversation you have been avoiding. Not the easiest one, not the necessary one. Prepare for it with clarity. Anchor it in care and deliver it with precision. And then stay present long enough to listen. Because leadership is not about maintaining comfort. It is about creating conditions where truth can be spoken, growth can occur, and performance can rise. And none of that happens in silence. Thank you for spending this time with me. Now, remember, leadership is not just about making decisions. It is about creating an environment where truth can be heard, trust can grow, and people can thrive. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear your reflections. You can connect with me at contactme@toyeshubande.com. And stay tuned, because in our next episode, we will continue exploring the deeper human realities that shape leadership effectiveness. Until then, keep leading with clarity, courage, and wisdom. Thank you for listening, and bye-bye.